Today we're going to learn how to draw realistic ears. Pencil drawing, using pencils to draw ears. Now later on I will show you how to draw realistic eyes as well. And we're going to learn how to draw mouths and lips and noses. And of course entire faces. But today I'm going to go ahead and show you how to draw realistic ears. Now earlier I had created an entire video to briefly show you a rough sketch on how to do an ear, and the camera did not, it had some glitches. So basically, if you can draw a C or a heart or part of a heart, you can put down an ear. And it's just as simple as determining the basic shapes of the ear and then putting down the lights and darks. So let's get started. So we're going to put down a C. That's it. Can you draw a C? Let's do it. And we're going to use this ear as an example. It's always good to have a picture of what you're going to draw, because it's very hard to draw from memory. If you haven't been an artist and drawn a lot, it's not really that easy to draw from your imagination or from your memory. So I always like to use a model, and it makes things easier. So we're going to use this as a model. So now that you've drawn your C, we're going to try and shape it up a little bit more into an ear. Okay, so an ear has this part here, and let's see, I think it's going to end right about here. Okay, so then it's time to do a little cleanup here. We're going to just quickly erase this one. Alright, so now the basic shape is there. You have an ear already, right? Cool. Now, as you can see right here, it's not a straight contiguous line, right? There are very individual nuances to this ear, okay? But for today, we're not going to have you do this, especially if you're a beginner. We're just going to have you go ahead and get your perspective and your perception. This is basically what I'm teaching you today, is to be able to look at the ear in a certain way to where you can quickly put it down on paper. Because the minute you let go of thinking of this as an ear and thinking of this as a series of interesting interlocking shapes, then you can quickly put down anything. Okay, so the next step to determine, now we've got the major shape, we've got the basic shape, okay? The next step to determine is the darkest and the lightest. Where on this is the darkest and where on this is the lightest? And this is with any medium you're using, whether it's a pencil, a color pencil, acrylic paints, oil paints. It doesn't matter. You're going to need to determine where the darkest and where is the lightest parts of, where are the darkest parts and where are the lightest parts of this ear, this picture, this drawing. Immediately you're going to see this part here, right? And what do you call this shape right here? There's really no name to call it, right? And this is the thing, the minute you can let go of labeling this as an ear and looking at it as just these weird, interesting shapes, then you're going to be able to put that down. This shape right here, you see this? What do you call that? There's no name. What about this one here? This is kind of like a triangle without a bottom, a curvy type of triangle, right? And then this shape here, it's kind of like a slanted square, and then it kind of droops down, and then it has kind of like a teardrop misshapen teardrop. You see, you can't put a name, you can't label this. And this is the key to learning how to draw. You gotta be able to get away from your symbol system. So, okay, so we've determined the darkest spots are here, 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 here. Okay? And then, of course, we have some of the edges that are pretty dark too, right? They're not dark all over. As you can see, the line is not continuous. It's not the same thickness and darkness everywhere. But certain spots are the darkest. And this gives you the impression of depth and volume in 3 dimensions. You see? So what we're going to do here now, we're going to lay out the lobe. The easiest thing, we're just going to draw a line. Don't worry about if it's crooked or straight or whatever, if it looks realistic right now. We're just putting down the different parts of the ear. All right? Next, let's see. We're going to go ahead and symbolize the darkest parts. Let's see, this goes kind of like that. So, okay. And let's see. We also have this little triangular thing without a bottom, right? This thing I'm trying to draw here. And again, you know, it's not going to be completely the same accuracy. I just want to be able to put down the information, the darkest parts. This is determining where the darkest and lightest is, okay? And that's all you're going to do is you're going to make sure to put these things down. And I've already made a mistake here. As you can see, I did not put my lobe all the way. You see, it's different. So you're going to catch yourself in your miscalculations, and you're going to have to erase. And no matter how good you are, you're going to go through this. So, you know, here's the point where I start beating up myself saying, oh, I'm never going to get this ear right. It's never going to look right. It looks like crap, and on and on and on. And this is part of it. You're going to have to keep going. You're going to have to keep ignoring that part. And you're going to have to just move on. Okay, and fix it. Okay, so now I've kind of fixed that. You see how it scoops down like that? And that's really how the natural anatomy of the earlobe is. Take a look at your ear in the mirror, you see? You see? But be careful that you don't scoop it down right here, because that's part of the shadow. The actual flesh goes all the way like that, you see? All right? And observing your object is 90% of drawing. So taking enough time to really look and observe at what you're doing is the key here. Okay. All right. Now that looks a little better. There's still something off about that, but I'm going to go ahead and keep moving on. And then later on, we're going to take some corrective action. And, you know, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Okay, so I've paused the video a bit, and then I've gone ahead and laid out where the darkest parts are. I've sketched out those shapes. I've done a few corrections. So take a look at this. All right, we can still see the darkest parts here, right? We got it right here, right around here, in this little nook and cranny, right in this one, and then right in this one. All right? Okay. So now we're going to shade it in. Now I'm using something called the 2B. The 2B pencils are thicker. As you can see, they're darker and softer. And this is where we're going to go ahead and shade in the darkest parts. And you want to do it from the edge outward. You don't want to start shading here into the edge, because it's going to look strange. It's not going to look consistent and even, and your picture is not going to look realistic. You're going to shade from inside that little nook and cranny. Okay? Okay, now I've put down the darkest. I've mixed it up with a 7B pencil, and as you can see, they're very, very dark. The strokes are super, super dark and soft. So be careful when you're using this. You only want to use this at the darkest parts. And really, I'm not even really comfortable using it at the beginning of the drawing, but I'm letting you see. I'm using it today to teach you to put down the darkest first. All right, so half the battle's already done because you've already got the darkest down. And once again, these shapes aren't really hard to draw, right? These dark things, they're not hard to draw because you can't really label them. And that's the whole key to being able to draw. As you can see, I changed my line to reflect the actual anatomy of the ear, right? This line didn't go all the way through. It stops right about here, and then there's an implication. You see it's implied, and then it kind of just fades out. But your brain registers it as an entire earlobe, even though there's no complete line going through there, you see? And that's the key. You see, this is the same thing with this ear. When you look at this, the earlobe line isn't all the way through. A lot of it is implied, and that's what makes it look realistic. When you have an ear and it looks cartoonish, 9 times out of 10, you've got lines there that are not implied. There needs to be some implication there. All right, so let's now put down the medium tones. Where are the medium tones? And where are the lightest? We're going to put down the medium tones, and then lastly, we're going to worry about the lightest, because the lightest are often done with eraser. You can use erasers to draw the lightest. Okay, so we're now going to do the medium tone. Okay, so we're putting down the medium tones. As you can see, what you want to do is, when you're putting down the medium tones, you want to start at the edge of the darkest shadows. Okay, so it looks more gradual. You see, there's not an abrupt dark and then there's a lighter. So around the edge of the shadows, you want to start doing a blending thing there. And blending's important. If you're not really good at blending, what you can do is just take some sheets of paper and practice blending. And I think after about 10 or 15 practice runs on that, you're going to really, really get good at blending. But this right here, as you see, you want to take your pencil and stroke out from the darkest to the lightest. You see, and you want to make it a gradual thing. And don't be afraid to lighten up your pencil or maybe put a little bit more pressure. Don't put too much pressure, because then you're going to have the markings show up and your paper is not going to be saturated properly. As you can see, some of the lines from my previous drawing aren't showing through because I had too much pressure, and now it's showing through on this drawing. So go ahead and let's put the medium tones in here, and I'll see you in a few seconds. Alright, so it's coming together. As you can see, you're starting to see a little bit of depth developing. As soon as we blend this and smooth this out, it's going to look totally different. But now the next step is, I'm going to go ahead and put the darkest points and spots with the earlobe and make the earlobe a little bit more unique and individual than just a straight C line that we started off with. Okay? Alright. So the next step I did was to erase the line of the ear, the contour, with a kneaded eraser. This is a different eraser than a gum eraser. These things erase differently. You could have used a gum eraser, but this one here, it lets you control the amount of erasure, the amount, and it's not such a harsh eraser as some of the other ones. Okay, so now let's make that ear a little bit more unique. Now, as you can see, I've angularized the lines. This is the easiest way for me to make sure that I get the nuances of the ear. I just make the lines angular. As you can see, this goes up. It goes up kind of like a triangle or a pyramid almost, right? So this is what I did. I just angularized it. Went down like that, you see? You go down like that. Then there's another line, bam. There's a little curve. These are all curves, but you can also angularize them to help you go back later in just a second and make them more curvy, you see? Look at that, it's coming together, isn't it? You see? You see how quickly you can learn to draw an ear? Hey, if you can draw the letter C, you can do an ear. All right, so I've rounded these things off a little bit. As you can see, it's turning out better and better. All right, so now the next step is to smudge and blend and make it all come together. And one of the secrets to blending and making things realistic, as far as pencils, including color pencils, is good old-fashioned toilet paper. And of course, the oils in your hands and fingers are also good. Another thing people like to use is tortillons and paper stumps. They are also very good, and you can get them at any art supply store. You can order them off Amazon. I keep truckloads of these things because you can never have enough paper stumps and tortillons when you're working with illustration and art. This is a soft art gum eraser. This erases differently than, say, this eraser. And then this one here, this art gum eraser, also erases differently. So you want to know about the different kinds of erasers because some of them work for different things a lot better. This one here isn't as harsh when you take it to erase a line here. As you can see, you can make soft and implied lines. Whereas with this one here, it's just going to straight up erase the line, okay? It's going to straight up erase it, and this one here has a different strength to it too. So we're going to go ahead and blend and smudge this with some toilet paper, some paper stumps, and of course good old-fashioned hands and fingers. Alright, as you can see, there's some bleed through from the other ears that I had been drawing, and you know, maybe I need to put down a cover under this one here so that the next drawing doesn't have these lines bleeding through. But in any case, as you can see now, I've blended it. I've done some circular blending with some toilet paper, and it's time to go back and darken some of these areas and also fill out and make it more realistic looking than it is. Alright? Alright, so now I've done some more blending. I've gone back and added some more darks. I've added some more lights. And of course we still have the bleed through from the other drawings, but you get the point here, right? And over here I started to emphasize certain lines here. I'm going to go back and I'm going to work with this one in just a minute to make this one more pronounced. But we're almost done. We've got a few more things here to give this some volume, to give the earlobe a little bit more volume. But as you can see, you started off with just a C. With just the basic C, we put down the basic things, and voila, here you are. You have drawn an ear. Can you believe that? Ears are not all that difficult, are they? They just have 4 or 5 major things. You can count them on one hand. You can count those basic things, and that's it. That's all you have to remember. All right, let's do a little bit more. Let's clean this up, and let's make this ready for showtime. I want to show you a trick here that you can do. I'm up here at this part of the earlobe, And you can use a thick, this is 7B, but you can use any kind of B. You can also use a 2B, but you want to use some thick pencils with the soft leads. And you want to just take part of the ear and emphasize it. And then lightly, right next to it, with the pencil laid on the side, you want to thicken that line. You see, you want to thicken it. There is a subtle shadow given off objects. These aren't all straight lines. You see, I did the same thing here. I kind of thickened it here and emphasized it with a little bit of shadowing, okay? And this is the same thing here. You're going to emphasize it a little bit and a little bit of shadowing. You see, this whole thing isn't all the way one line, because that's what makes it look cartoonish. But when you look at nature, when you look at the edges of objects in nature, you're going to see some shadowing. So what you're going to do, you're going to emphasize the lines just enough to where it looks realistic, right? And then you can take toilet paper, but I'm going to take a Tortillon today. And Tortillons are really great because they can blend this to where it looks realistic. You can also take your fingers, you see, and don't be afraid to saturate the whole earlobe with some of your smudging, okay? Because in a minute I'm going to take the eraser and show you how to give the earlobe a little bit more depth and volume, okay? And here, as you can see, I didn't draw an earring. I just kind of implied it, a little stud, okay? So once again, you don't have to put down everything. And this line here looks a little bit abrupt, so I'm going to kind of connect it here. I'm going to connect this part here. This looks alright, but I'm going to go over it just for good measure. You see, this is a little abrupt looking here, so I'm going to go over it and smooth it on out to where it looks gradual. You see that? Now look. Now that, it doesn't look exactly like that, okay? But as you can see, you don't have that cartoonish look, okay? So, that's it. I think this is it. We're about done. You know, we could have done a few more things here. Like this part here. This looks a little bit too abrupt. This line's a little bit too abrupt for my taste. So, we've got one more thing to do, and then I think we are D-O-N-E. Alright, you are done with your ear. Look at that. You have done it. You have drawn a realistic ear. So, yeah, this is about 25 minutes. Give me 25 minutes, and I'll show you how to draw a realistic ear. Alright, so, the tools that we used, these are basic dollar store pencils, but you can get them at any art supply store. Okay, 7B. We have a 2B. This is a basic number 2 pencil. You can get them anywhere. This was a free one I received from the library. We have a kneaded eraser. We have art gum eraser, which I didn't use. I didn't use this one either. I just used a kneaded eraser, but those are also some options. We have Tortillons and paper stomps. I didn't use that much of them. We also have color blending pencils, which I did not use, but you can use that. We use good old-fashioned toilet paper, all right? Plain toilet paper. Don't buy the fancy one. Buy the soft, cheap kind. It's the best. Don't use paper towels either. They don't give you the same results as good old-fashioned toilet paper. And of course, you can also use your hands and fingers. But if you use your hands, a lot of times what you'll want to do is get a piece of paper, an extra piece of paper, to put on your drawing as you're working on it, so that your hands don't start smudging the wrong things and you mess up your drawing. Also, remember to put some underlays under your drawings as the impressions can come out. The previous drawings I had, unfortunately, it's coming out, so that's something we're learning together. All right. Thanks for watching, and go ahead and try this, practice this. It's a lot of fun, and I'll see you next time.